Now, given how bad of a week this was for Dave Meltzer, keep that in mind when I read this report to you, but it did make headlines this week, and it feeds into a larger story about TKO's concern over WrestleMania ticket sales so far that has been echoed by people other than Dave. But it was on Wrestling Observer Radio Monday night that Meltzer and Alvarez, they revealed that WWE officials have grown increasingly frustrated with how often creative plans have shifted, with Paul Levesque taking the brunt of that criticism. Meltzer said before the Rumble, they had a complete card for WrestleMania, but I was told that everything is up in the air. According to him, that uncertainty has led to pointed criticism of Levesque from those within the company, with some comparing the situation to the old Vince McMahon era of constant last-minute changes. There's been a lot of internal criticism of Paul Levesque. They have a plan, and then they change the plan. They think that changing a card that nobody knows makes sense. It's not like they have a bad card out there and people aren't buying tickets. They don't have a card out there. So Paul Levesque is supposedly on the hot seat. First of all, I don't care how many times he changes his mind weeks in advance on what direction he might want to take for WrestleMania. It is a far cry from the days of Vince McMahon ripping up scripts and blowing up plans 3 hours before every show. Okay, let's not compare. The two aren't exactly apples to apples, okay? It's still better than that. But I can understand people internally being frustrated being this close to WrestleMania and having plans constantly shifting if that is what's happening. Or if top talents don't even know what the hell they're doing yet on that show. And I'm sure a lot of them don't. They're probably reading the same reports that you and I are, and they're wondering, hey, what the hell am I going to be doing at WrestleMania? Now, compare this to a few years ago when it was very clear months and months in advance that it was going to be Cody Rhodes challenging Roman Reigns, and that Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, they were going to be wrestling the Usos on night one for the tag team titles. They had these stories that were playing out. I mean, it may have been predictable, but they had that bloodline story mapped out. All the key players knew what their role was on that show. It doesn't seem to be like that anymore. And one of the reasons for all of these creative changes, there was said to be a card laid out before the Royal Rumble, and now it may be changing yet again. It may well be that the heat that Levesque is supposedly feeling right now from ticket sales not being as hot as TKO thought they would be. I mean, ticket sales right now for both nights of WrestleMania are nearly 20% lower than they were this time last year. The only thing we know for sure is that Roman Reigns is challenging CM Punk for the World Heavyweight title. Very likely on WrestleMania Sunday. Barring injury, that match is rock solid. That's not getting changed. Okay. Sorry, Finn Balor. That match is not getting changed. He'll be challenging Punk for the title at Elimination Chamber. Balor will be. But the only belt that Balor is going to be taking home is from the merch stand. Okay. He can buy himself a replica. WWE Creative has been stagnant for a while now. Okay. They have no compelling stories. They had one compelling segment a few weeks ago, but they have no compelling stories that they have been telling. Levesque was able to coast on the Bloodline story for a long time. Okay, it was a story that started before he even took the book. It started under Vince. But he was very fortunate to have that dumped in his lap. But what story or stories has he himself come up with that you would consider to truly be compelling or must-see? CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, they had a great feud that was born out of Punk getting hurt. If Punk never gets injured, we don't get that story. Drew McIntyre's social media game was on point while CM Punk was out. I give most of the credit to him and Punk for making that as great as it was. Outside of that, there has been nothing. They have been on autopilot for a while now. Okay, Levesque was handed a gold mine in John Cena's retirement tour last year. He managed to nearly fuck the whole thing up for the sake of creating a viral moment. Hey, let's turn John Cena heel. And he takes credit for the idea. No plan to follow up on it. WWE Creative is boring and uninspired. Okay, so that doesn't help when you're trying to sell 50 or 60,000 tickets back-to-back nights in the same venue and the same city, which is already one of the most expensive destinations in the country for a WrestleMania that in the same venue and city last year was a disappointment. Last year, night one was a boring show with a great ending. Night two was a very good show with a terrible ending that shit the bed. On the whole, definitely not one of the better WrestleManias they've ever done. What do you think is going to happen when you continue charging outrageous prices for tickets to a show like that? Come showtime, look, I have no doubt that come showtime, they're going to have most of those seats filled. All right, as they continue to announce matches and they start offering ticket deals, Allegiant Stadium just announced 25% off tickets now through Monday. Then you have people who wait until the week of the event, days before the event, for prices to come down. The problem with that, of course, is that I would guess that of the 50 or 60,000 people that are going to be in Allegiant Stadium both those nights, the vast majority of them are not from Las Vegas. They're from other places. They're flying in for the show. You have to have time to arrange to travel to WrestleMania. You don't just buy a ticket and show up unless you're local. So there are a lot of people who can't wait until 5 days before the show and then first go ahead and book a flight and book a hotel. Do you know how hard it's going to be to book a hotel, probably even now, let alone a week before the show, to go to WrestleMania? It's not practical for a lot of people, especially if you have a family or if you're a group of friends, 4 or 5 people who want to go. But there are people who wait until the week of, and then prices drop a little bit, and then they scoop up tickets. Like that always happens. But I don't have any doubt they'll have at least 45,000 fans in the building each night. And then they'll announce much more than that, but I'm sure there'll be a minimum 45K each night in those buildings or in that building. But that's not good enough for TKO. They don't like that ticket sales are lagging behind last year. It's a bad look for them. Now, WrestleVotes Radio on Fightful Select reported that WWE held a multi-department company meeting on Wednesday to address WrestleMania ticket sales. According to a source, leadership acknowledged internally that the current numbers are below expectations, and all departments have been tasked with developing strategies and promotions to roll out beginning in late February in an effort to boost momentum and sales heading into the event. Additionally, we're told WWE intends to keep current ticket pricing as is for the time being. Oh, you're going to have to pull them kicking and screaming to get them to change those prices. Right now, they have almost 38,000 tickets out for each night. Okay, so they're around 10,000 or so behind where they were this time last year for each night. That is a far cry. Just to illustrate where we were a few years ago, that is a far cry from 4 years ago when tickets first went on sale for WrestleMania 39, which I guess, that would have been the first WrestleMania really under Triple H, even though Vince was still, he wasn't fully out, right? I think Vince was actually there for night 2. I think they said he was sitting in Gorilla for that show. And then, of course, he fucking blew up Raw the next night. But that would have technically been the first Triple H WrestleMania. WrestleMania 39, Triple H announced months before that, okay, in the summer of 2022, he was the one who announced they sold 90,000 tickets in the first 24 hours that WrestleMania tickets went on sale. In the first 24 hours, they had 48,000 tickets out for night 1. They had 49,000 tickets out for night 2. And that was in August. That means 10 months out from WrestleMania, they were already at about 80% capacity. One of the realities right now is that the product is just not hot like it used to be. It's not. It's more mainstream, and they do a very good job of making it feel like it's the hottest thing in the world, but it's not. They peaked. We're on the other side of the peak now. It's like climbing to the summit of Mount Everest, right? You get to the top of the mountain, and then you have to start descending the mountain and climbing down. They're not all the way on the bottom, okay? They're not anywhere close. They're still pretty high up there, but they're on the other side of the mountain now, and they have started their descent. Then you factor in ticket prices and location on top of all that, and there's your answer. You want to know why they're lagging in ticket sales? There's your number one answer right there. You're running Vegas back-to-back years, which is expensive enough when it comes to airfare and hotel and food and entertainment and everything else. It's not cheap. That is absolutely part of it. And I said it on X the other day. I said this would not be happening if they had brought the show to New Orleans like they originally intended. They publicly announced, they had The Rock go out on TV and announce WrestleMania 42 is coming to New Orleans. It's coming to the Big Easy. And then they yanked it. And I said this wouldn't be happening if they had kept the show in New Orleans. And I said, greed is good until it's not. They saw how much money they made last year. And even though they had The Rock go out on TV and announce New Orleans, they could not help themselves, right? Their greed consumed them. And they pulled out in favor of going back to Las Vegas. They had dollar signs in their eyes and they said, we got to go back. That greed was bound to bite them on the ass at some point. And look, they're still going to make a lot of money. I don't want to make it sound like they're going to go bankrupt for this show. They're still going to make a shitload of money this year. But that greed is going to bite you on the ass at some point. And I'm not saying, and some people thought, well, you're ignoring ticket prices. I wasn't ignoring ticket prices when I tweeted that. I'm not saying if they would have run New Orleans that tickets would have been $20 a pop. They would still be charging high prices, but being back there for the first time in 8 years, and generally a trip to New Orleans being cheaper than a trip to Vegas would be, they would absolutely be outpacing what they have sold so far. I have no doubt about that. And there's another reason that some people are citing, which is the decline in tourism in Las Vegas. Now, I don't rank this too high on the list of reasons, but you can't ignore it. It is a factor. With the political climate being what it is, fewer people are vacationing in the U.S. Tourism from other countries accounted for $181 billion spent in the U.S. 2 years ago. That was $30 billion more than the year before. Last year, that number was projected to fall to just under $169 billion. So that's a real thing. But it's a small part of it. It's them charging premium prices for a product that does not feel premium right now. That is the biggest reason why tickets are lagging. And now they're pissing a whole bunch of people off by imposing a ban on WrestleMania airings within a 50-mile radius of Allegiant Stadium the day of the shows. This is their latest effort to try to force people to buy tickets to actually go to the show if they want to watch it. So they're telling bars and other establishments that hotels and what have you that maybe we're planning on hosting viewing parties. You ain't going to be allowed to host a viewing party because you're not going to be allowed to air the show. Even the ones that are willing to pay a licensing fee for it. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful says that there are a lot of venues, businesses, and hotels tied to the city that have communicated big frustration about the watch parties being blacked out. They felt like the city paid a site fee for WWE to help encourage tourism, and they are restricting it with this move. I mean, when the lowest price for a nosebleed seat up in Section 300 is $266 before taxes, okay, I looked it up. You can see why tickets would not be moving as fast. That's a nosebleed seat. And right now, they're missing that one hot star or that one really hot angle or story. They don't have it. They don't have either one. They have stars who are very popular and moving merch. And I mean, I'm not saying Roman Reigns is not a star. CM Punk, Cody Rhodes. They have stars, but they don't have that one white hot act or that one white hot story. Like they did with the Bloodline stuff a few years ago. They don't have either one, but they're acting like they do. A lot of the stories they do have, they drag them out forever in a day. You got 4-match PLEs. They're charging you more for less. And it reminds me of what Mark Shapiro of TKO said last year when he was talking about ticket prices. And he said, we know we have a lot of room there. Vince McMahon was primarily pricing tickets for families and wasn't totally focused on maxing the opportunity. They're going to make me defend Vince McMahon here. But when it comes to business, the man knew what he was doing. Of course, he wanted to make a lot of money, but he was also smart enough not to chase away families by pricing them out. Like, I became a fan because my father watched wrestling. And he became a fan because his father watched wrestling. You win over those kids, and eventually those kids become adults, and they're going to make fans out of their own kids. TKO is about the here and now. How can we make as much money as possible off these people right now without paying any mind to what that audience might look like a few years down the road? It can't just be about the present. It's about the future. Vince understood that. And it's not that TKO doesn't. They just don't care.